This is really too bad. This new Wolfman, this is a case where it's very clear that you can say the movie really got away from them at some point, but it's not exactly clear where and how it got away, and that's interesting. And I'll be really interested when it's a couple months later and this is out, maybe on streaming, physical, whatever, and there's documentation about it, to find out exactly how this got away from them, because it's not entirely clear where exactly this went wrong, just that it kind of did. And that's unfortunate, because clearly a lot of talented people put a lot of work into this, and something just didn't come together, but you can't exactly tell how. And that's interesting. It doesn't make the movie good, but it makes it an interesting, not good, but also not entirely bad movie. This comes from most of the same team that put together the remake, reimagining, whatever, of The Invisible Man. This is all part of the continually stymied attempts by Universal to somehow reboot their Universal Monsters franchise, which is an odd franchise thing to have, because these are all public domain concepts: vampires, werewolves, the Frankenstein monster, mummies, whatever, held together by the idea that at one point, almost 100 years ago at this point, in the 30s and 40s, Universal had a loose franchise of monster movies, sort of the first big studio continuity thing. And they've tried several times since, to varying degrees of success, to reestablish this, and it's never quite taken, mostly because they overthink it, rather than just making another good Dracula movie, another good werewolf movie, another good mummy movie, and just saying, okay, now this is a brand again. Mostly keep swinging at it. The most recent attempt was the Dark Universe business. Before that, they tried to do Van Helsing after The Mummy was a big hit. None of this ever sticks. Mostly keep trying because the theme park is always really popular. It hasn't yet occurred to anyone, apparently it hasn't yet occurred to anyone, to just let whoever is running the theme park end of this just take a concept swing at the movie side and just hire good writers. But okay. So the Invisible Man movie was actually very cool, mostly because they stopped trying to have any pretense toward doing the H.G. Wells story and just went off of the title and concept. Came back with, hey, what if a crazy stalker guy could also be invisible? Wouldn't that be scary? And it turned out, yeah, actually, that would be pretty fucking terrifying. That's a genuinely unnerving, scary sci-fi movie. In this one, almost feels like they went another direction, but also in two different directions, where it's almost overthought and underthought at the same time, which is interesting, and yet somehow not that interesting. So our setup here is Christopher Abbott is playing a guy who was raised, we see him first as a little kid, by a dad, survivalist up in Oregon, training him to be a tough, super macho guy, hunting with guns in the woods, because there was werewolves in the woods. Like, he didn't tell them there was werewolves in the woods, but we see very clearly, like, they're not hiding this right up front. I'm a survivalist because I was ex-military, and there's werewolves in these woods. So he's raising him to be a tough, unfeeling, toxic, masculine guy because there's werewolves. So already we get where the premise to this is probably going, that Wolfman, werewolves, hairy, angry guys. Universal Wolfman specifically has always been about... do people know this, by the way, that most of the stuff that you think you know about werewolf mythology is shit that they just made up for that first Wolfman movie? Like, all the stuff about full moons, silver bullets, wolfsbane, pentagrams, and all that shit was stuff that they made up for that movie because there wasn't actually any werewolf mythology besides dudes that changed into wolves, and they needed something to hang a movie around, so they just made it up for that, and the whole rest of culture just remembered. Anyway, doesn't really matter because they aren't doing any of that here, other than the general concept that werewolves equals dad issues, which is also part of that movie. Fast forward into the main plot of the movie, where this guy has rejected that and grown up into a dude who's basically happy, but he is also maybe not happy because his wife wears the pants in the family and he's more connected to their daughter and he's a sensitive dude who's in touch with his feelings and he's okay being a house husband, but maybe he's not because they've got trouble at home. They find out that his father has been declared legally dead. They've been estranged for a while. He thinks, hey, maybe it's a good idea that we go up to my old family house to clean out Dad's place, settle the estate, it'll be good for us. And they really lay on the idea thick that this guy is maybe like a henpecked guy, but he doesn't have a problem with it. Maybe he should have a problem with it. Could be a thing in the back of his head. And you can clearly see where you think, oh, okay, I see where this movie's going. He's going to get scratched by a werewolf, bit by a werewolf, and he's going to start turning into a macho guy, a metaphor for toxic masculinity, and he's going to get there, and that's going to be the angle of the movie, because can you be a wolf man? Can you not be a wolf man? It's regression into the grown-ass man version of the way that the I Was a Teenage Werewolf / Teen Wolf movies did werewolfism as metaphor for puberty. This is going to be Wolfman as metaphor for dudes getting in touch with their caveman instincts in a bad way, and can he resist that? Can he not resist that? We'll do like a whole second act of him getting more, oh no, I'm turning into my dad, as a metaphor for turning into a werewolf. Cool, like that works. That's a good idea for how this could work. It's like a total cliche and you can see it coming a mile away. Here's the thing, it doesn't really do that, in the sense that they just speed run through any sense of illusion or metaphor. They go there, he immediately gets scratched by a wolf, and then the movie is a straight up one night, there's a werewolf outside trying to get into the house, and also inside the house a dude is turning into a wolf, and we are not having conversations about this. We are not doing, like an extended sequence inside over a couple of days of, hey, I'm changing a little bit, my behavior is changing. You're expecting back and forth scenes of, hey, honey, you're different, shut up, now I'm a different guy, I'm gonna assert myself. No, it's only focused on body horror, werewolf transformation stuff, and psychological horror of, hey, I've got heightened senses, that's interesting, but also I'm losing my essential humanity and can't interact with my family stuff. All very interesting, but there's not quite enough of that, and also not quite enough of the thematic stuff, which is only packed into very late in the game. Oh, okay, that's who the other werewolf was supposed to be business, so that it can loop back around and come into a, oh, okay, so that's what we were making the movie about, thematic turns. So what you end up with is a movie that is almost exclusively a pretty decent, hey, this is the very, very rigidly realistic version of what if a dude quickly turned into a wolf man with, senses going up, what would that sound like? Sense of smell going up, what would that look like? How would you negotiate having a full werewolf outside and a half wolf inside, and how would those two creatures play off of each other, kind of thing? With a very light dusting of thematic stuff at the very beginning and very end of the movie, and some characters sort of gently looking off into the distance with a note of, hey, think about this, won't you? And you almost want to admire the subtlety, but it feels like it's less subtle and more, we realized the movie wasn't working as full-out horror or message horror, and just dialed back enough of it on both to get it into a feature running time and said, okay, we'll try this again in the next Wolfman movie. But on the plus side, performances are very good. This is no joke, no funny business, no sudden lighten up stuff. You really feel the darkness, you really feel the reverse claustrophobia of, wow, they are way the fuck out in the middle of nowhere, no one is coming to help, and the one or both wolfmen could be anywhere in this dark, and being absolutely out in the middle of nowhere in the fucking woods is a really specific kind of scary that most movies do not ever really nail. So I'm not going to call this good, and I really wish that it was better. And to be honest, I still think that the Wolfman movie from, God, was it almost a decade ago at this point, was super underrated, and I wish that more people had seen that and gotten into it, because that, apart from everyone talks about how great the makeup was, the rest of it was just a lot of fun. It's an admirable effort. I'm going to call it a 7 out of 10 because they definitely tried. But honestly, over the course of this review, I think I kind of talked myself into liking it a bit more than I did while watching it. So there's that, yeah.